compiled in the Newstalk Radio Newsroom and powered by DemeraraWaves.com.
Good morning with your major newscast. I am Jessica Sam, which comes to you with the compliments of the Eureka Medical Laboratory. First with the highlights. The opposition leader says he wants to discuss more than just constitutional appointments with the president. The Guyana Power and Light plans to build a high-tech station at Eccles to control most of the country's electricity supply. In the region, the coalition government in St. Kitts and Nevis continues to be in turmoil, with two partners saying they have lost confidence in the Prime Minister. Cost of living is about to go up again in the Bahamas, and internationally you'll have your latest news coming from the BBC. Do stay tuned.
Don't let the fear of contracting the coronavirus disease deter you from seeking the medical care you need. At Ecolabs, we ensure the safety of our clients and staff with our rigid sanitization routine. This involves the use of ultraviolet lights to effectively rid the air and all surfaces of viruses and bacteria that may be present throughout the lab daily. The light works to rapidly inactivate microorganisms through a physical process that is invisible to human eye. So the next time you need a checkup, don't hesitate to give us a call on 225-7574 to schedule your appointment.
Now for the news in detail. Opposition leader Aubrey Norton wants his meeting with President Irfaan Ali to discuss several matters affecting Guyanese rather than only the appointment of several service commissions. President Irfaan Ali was Thursday expected to dispatch a letter of invitation to the constitutionally required consultations within the next 2 weeks. In addition to saying that the president cannot unilaterally fix a date for those consultations that have to do with the appointment of several service commissions, the opposition leader wants the agenda widened.
In representing them, there will be constitutional matters, and there will be matters that are not stated in the Constitution as a constitutional issue to be determined between the president and the opposition leader. And I will push for both, because I believe you cannot deal with one and not deal with the other. And it is my sincere hope that good sense will prevail and we attempt to deal with the issues in the society in a holistic way rather than in a piecemeal fashion that will generate its own problems.
Mr. Norton has identified several issues he wants to discuss with the president.
Meeting with the president, should they occur, must extend beyond the appointment of commissioners and judges. Meetings must also discuss opposition concerns about good governance and the abuse of political power by the People's Progressive Party, including discrimination against opposition-led local councils, the uneven and incomplete distribution of flood and other relief, the unsatisfactory oversight of the national patrimony in the National Resource Fund, and the abuse of human and legal rights by some rogue police ranks.
The Guyana government is on record as saying that political discussions, other than those constitutionally required, would be hinged on the PNCR-led opposition coalition, recognizing the government as having been legitimately elected at the March 2, 2020 general and regional elections. The APNU plus AFC continues to maintain that the PPP had engineered the rigging of the polls through a number of irregularities and using a bloated voters list. At the same time, the coalition is on record of calling for political engagements. The American Chamber of Commerce Guyana AmCham says investors are already lining up to get into the construction of prefabricated buildings. The president of AmCham Guyana, attorney at law Devendra Kisoon, made known this development at the official launching of the International Building Expo 2022, scheduled to be held in July.
Already persons have demonstrated unbridled enthusiasm for this macro project, expressing an interest to build in Guyana and supply prefabricated concrete walls to speed up the construction of commercial buildings, manufacture and install and assemble Guyanese manufactured homes, prefabricated homes, so that persons can quickly get housing, venture even into 3D printing of items which will act as accessories to the construction center, and even some have expressed the hope of using hemp for the purposes of construction should the legislative framework be enacted.
President Irfan Ali has said that Guyana would have to become more than just a grower of hemp. He says that there will be a need for a hemp processing facility. The Guyana Power and Light is planning to build a sophisticated centralized station that will monitor and operate the system. GPL's Chief Executive Officer Baradin Dial says a smart grid system will be installed along with a new national control system that is expected to come into operation in another 8 years.
There's going to be a new national control center at Eccles that's going to manage the entire system. There's going to be a state-of-the-art system, and the system then, by the time this is completed, we expect to have all our isolated systems in Essequibo, which is the Essequibo Coast, Leg 1, Wakenham, Bartica, and even Linden integrated into the national grid. So the quality of power is going to dramatically improve. We're going to be investing specifically in power quality, voltage regulation, and monitoring of the entire system. We're going to have the ability to simulate the system in different configurations and determine what is the best configuration to ensure security and stability of the entire system.
Mr. Dendial also says a new substation will be built at Eccles, East Bank Demerara, to receive the 300 megawatts of electricity from the Wales natural gas-powered station. He says the electricity will be fed from Wales to Eccles by two 230 kilovolt transmission lines. He says from Eccles, the power will be fed to the Sophia substation. Plans are also being made to extend the 230 kilovolt transmission lines to Williamsburg Quarantine. The GPL chief says the 165 megawatts from the Amila Falls hydropower station will also be fed to Eccles. Now for the news in the region. St. Kitts and Nevis Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris is seemingly not giving in to the demands of his Team Unity coalition partners. Neither Prime Minister Harris nor Deputy Prime Minister Sean Richards or Nevis Premier Mark Brantley has revealed what those demands are. Mr. Richards and Mr. Brantley have written to the Governor General informing him that Prime Minister Harris does not command the support of the majority of the parliamentarians. They do not believe that there should be a general election to resolve the political impasse. Instead, the Deputy Prime Minister of the Federation and the Premier of Nevis hope that the Governor General will remove Prime Minister Harris and appoint someone else. The Caribbean Community CARICOM will soon be able to lay out its concerns about the impact of removal of correspondent banking relationships. A number of U.S. banks have either stopped doing business with a number of banks in the Caribbean or have tightened the rules, saying they feared the movement of laundered money or cash to finance terrorism. We get more from Barbados Today.
The United States Congress will hear firsthand the Caribbean's concern about correspondence banking challenges, and those hearings are likely to take place before year-end. That's among the major outcomes of an intense round of talks involving CARICOM leaders and members of the Financial Services Committee of the U.S. Congress. The talks were jointly chaired by Prime Minister Mia Mottley and the United States Congresswoman Maxine Waters, the chairwoman of the U.S. House Committee on Financial Services at the Lloyd Erskine Sandiford Center. At a press conference this evening, Mottley said, having heard the region's concern, the U.S. delegation agreed the issues should be presented to Congress.
The U.S. Congressional delegation has agreed that this issue is of such major import that it really now merits congressional hearings to allow us to bring not only those who were here in Barbados today, but to expose this issue to a wider audience and also to bring those other banks who may well be benefiting from our business, but who are not willing to share in the burden that may be necessary in meeting additional regulatory issues as it relates to giving us the opportunity to be beneficiaries of correspondent banking relationships. The truth is that the refrain that is heard the most is that we are too small and not profitable enough for them to undertake the enhanced due diligence that may be required of them in different markets.
Mottley stressed that tackling these kinds of matters was imperative for the region's survival.
It is important that the banking sector on both sides, in the U.S. and in the Caribbean, get to know each other, get to speak to each other, and start to deconstruct and reconstruct such that we understand what it is we're trying to achieve, why the regulatory requirements are so complex and challenging, and how we can minimize it. All of us know that the notion that you're going to ask an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old to bring a light bill to open a bank account, when years ago we would just walk into a bank and open a bank account, is today absurd. And it therefore means that too many of our citizens are remaining unbanked because of the additional burdens being placed on banks in order to be able to meet the demands and to ensure that they themselves, as one put it today, we have sometimes to de-risk customers to ensure that we as banks are not de-risked.
Barbados' Prime Minister Mia Mottley ending that report from Barbados Today. Antigua and Barbuda's new political party, Democratic National Alliance, DNA, has unveiled its 16 candidates. The party will be contesting all seats in Antigua. ABS Radio's Jessica Russell spoke with DNA leader Joanne Messiah.
It has been a long labor of love, but we're all delighted to get this point when we are positioned and poised to contest all 16 seats here on Antigua.
The Democratic National Alliance launched their candidates for the next general elections at the JSC Sports Complex with a modest turnout on Tuesday evening. However, the party's president, Joanne Messiah, says she's not dismayed.
We're happy. We're happy because certainly we're still in the COVID environment. And a number of people have said that they would be tuning in online. And so we are monitoring the numbers and we're very, very happy.
She says the DNA will campaign on a number of issues plaguing Antiguans and Barbudans.
Certainly the cost of living, the increasing cost of living. Certainly the failure to diversify our economy. The education, healthcare, water.
She says land ownership and affordable housing are other issues the party will advocate for. Messiah says this is what makes our party different.
We have men and women who are true patriots. We have men and women who have not ever been embroiled in any scandal. Those of us who have been in government. We recognize that we represent, broadly speaking, what the society reflects.
General elections are constitutionally due in 2023. Jessica Russell, ABS News.
More in the region, cost of living in the Bahamas is expected to increase again. That's a prediction by the International Monetary Fund, IMF. More from our news, Brittany McDermott.
The International Monetary Fund is projecting consumer prices will increase by 7.3% this year. Prime Minister Philip Davis says the news didn't take him by surprise. He says his government is working to mitigate the impact on consumers.
We're looking at measures and initiatives now to do that. We are talking with shipping companies to lower the cost of freight coming in and to try to get discounts on containers. We've already successfully did that with one company, and we are now talking about how we could assist through the logistical supply chain to reduce costs in those areas.
The IMF's World Economic Outlook comes as Bahamians face rising fuel, food, and other prices, and as the country is still on the rebound following the global pandemic. The IMF's projected increase would be the highest annual percentage change in inflation since 1991, when consumer prices increased by 7.3%. Inflationary pressures are projected to see a lower increase in 2023 of 4.5%, before leveling out to pre-pandemic levels of 2.4% in 2027.
We're not surprised because a lot of the factors that inform the inflationary numbers are we can't control. We have no control of it.
His comments were echoed by Social Services and Urban Development Minister Obi Wilchcombe, who said government will increase social services assistance amid this grim revelation.
Yes, absolutely. The Prime Minister will unveil because we have to meet the needs of our people. These are situations that you didn't plan for, but the circumstances are what they are. Our job is to respond to them. We will.
Opposition member Kwesi Thompson also weighing in, saying the IMF report didn't take him by surprise. He offered a number of suggestions the Davis administration could implement to ease the burden on Bahamians. Topping that list, removing VAT from breadbasket items.
They have been consulting, but we are calling upon them to act. One easy, very quick thing that can be done is they can remove VAT off of bread basket items. That will have an immediate effect on the prices that people pay for food.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
And lastly, in the region, International Criminal Court ICC prosecutor Karim Khan has rejected a request by Venezuela to delay an ICC probe in alleged human rights violations. Reuters news agency says this is according to documents released on Thursday. Mr. Khan will seek to reopen a full investigation. Caracas had sought the delay in order to show that authorities there were ready and able to conduct their own investigation into alleged crimes committed since 2017 under the rule of President Nicolas Maduro. In 2020, Khan's office found in a preliminary examination that there was a reasonable basis to believe that since at least April 2017, civilian authorities, members of the armed forces, and pro-government individuals have committed the crimes against humanity. Under ICC rules, member states themselves have the duty and first right to prosecute alleged atrocities on their own soil. But Khan's filing said Venezuela had not demonstrated that local accountability efforts were sufficient, and he would seek an ICC-led investigation. In March, a prosecutor visited Venezuela and announced he would open an office there. Authorities in Caracas have said an ICC investigation would be unwarranted, but still agreed to cooperate with the court. Khan noted that he would support efforts by the Venezuelan authorities to conduct investigations into some alleged crimes. And here now is your international news coming from the BBC.
BBC News. Hello, this is Jerry Smith. Ukrainian officials have accused Russian forces of dumping the bodies of hundreds of civilians in mass graves outside the besieged city of Mariupol. Satellite images appear to show 4 freshly dug trenches on the edge of a nearby village, each about 90 metres long. The city council says the Russians are taking the dead in lorries and burying them at the site. Jan Egeland from the Norwegian Refugee Council says the situation is worsening in other parts of the country.
Severodonetsk is really being turned into ashes. Even there, I hear of bodies in the streets, just like in Mariupol. We are hearing how populations are stuck. They cannot escape. And these populations are largely elderly people.
The mayor of Kharkiv says there are still 1 million people left in Ukraine's second city, despite weeks of Russian bombardment. Speaking to the BBC, Ihor Terakov said there were civilian casualties and many injured. He described the Russian offensive as the killing of a nation. Mr. Terakov said Russian forces were shelling residential areas in ways that were making it difficult for people to find shelter.
You know, it is very difficult because we do not understand where the shelling will be, where they will fire, and the geography of the shelling is very chaotic, and now Russians have extended the geography of the bombings.
A Russian military commander has said the offensive in Ukraine is aimed at taking full control of the south of the country and the land route to Crimea, as well as the eastern Donbass region. Major General Rustam Minyakayev said controlling southern Ukraine would also give access to Transnistria. It's not clear if his comments were officially sanctioned. The authorities in Shanghai are taking new steps to contain a wave of COVID infections that has led to more than 3 weeks of lockdown for millions of people in the Chinese commercial hub. Officials announced tougher enforcement measures, saying they'll ensure people who've tested positive stay at home by fixing electronic alarms to their doors. The British Prime Minister Boris Johnson says the UK has signed a new defence partnership with India, including cooperation on fighter jet technology. Speaking in Delhi, Mr Johnson said he'd also told negotiators to complete a bilateral free trade deal by November.
This could double our trade and investment by the end of the decade, widening that living bridge into a multi-lane motorway pullulating with beautiful jointly made electric vehicles and creating hundreds of thousands of new jobs in both our countries.
You're listening to World News from the BBC. Prosecutors in France have issued an international arrest warrant against Carlos Ghosn, once one of the world's most powerful car industry executives and now a fugitive in Lebanon. His lawyers said they were surprised by the move. Theo Leggett reports.
Carlos Ghosn was the driving force behind the alliance of Renault, Nissan and Mitsubishi, collectively one of the biggest car-making businesses in the world. His downfall came in late 2018 when he was arrested in Japan and charged with financial crimes. He denied the charges and later made a dramatic escape to Lebanon, where he now lives. French prosecutors have been investigating his affairs for some time. The arrest warrants issued today relate to 15 million euros of potentially suspect payments between the car-making group and a dealership in Oman.
The former president of Kenya, Mwai Kibaki, has died. He was 90 years old. Mr. Kibaki served as head of state from 2002 to 2013. He was credited with reviving an ailing economy, but his tenure was marred by deadly violence that erupted following his disputed re-election in 2007. There have been fresh clashes at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound in Jerusalem between Palestinian demonstrators and Israeli police. Palestinian medics say at least 27 people have been injured by rubber bullets, some seriously. Thousands had gathered for dawn prayers on the third Friday of Ramadan. Sri Lanka's inflation has hit a record high for the sixth consecutive month, increasing to 21.5% in March, as the country battles a severe economic crisis. The government has asked the IMF for an urgent bailout to continue to pay for fuel and food imports. Thousands of people have been protesting over the worsening shortage of essential items. And that's the BBC News.
A COVID-19 PCR test is now mandatory for many routine activities, including travel and return to work purposes. At Eureka, our trained and experienced staff will ensure confidentiality while your test is conducted in a professional and timely manner, which results in just 48 hours. So the next time you require an efficient and hassle-free PCR COVID-19 test, call 624-8378, 608-8378, or 623-7233 to schedule your appointment. You can also ask about our house call testing service.
And here now is a recap of the highlights. The opposition leader says he wants to discuss more than just constitutional appointments with the president. The Guyana Power and Light plans to build a high-tech station at Eccles to control most of the country's electricity supply. And in the region, the coalition government in St. Kitts and Nevis continues to be in turmoil, with two partners saying they have lost confidence in the Prime Minister. Cost of living is about to go up again in the Bahamas. And you had your latest international news coming from the BBC, and that was your major newscast. I am Jessica Sam.
This has been the news, compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demerarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com/demwaves.